What's up, everyone? And we are back. Another year, another round of the NHL playoffs starting. So I figured I'd do another quick pod. I'm doing a pod with Dalton covering the NBA playoffs and our predictions for that. That will be up probably either tomorrow or Saturday, depending on when I get around to editing it. But I figured I would not only give you my pre-playoff predictions, as you can see my full bracket right there. I'm going to just talk about the first round in this video, but I'm also going to share some sentiments about the Capitals, as that is the team that I am most familiar with, and talk about what I expect from them in the playoffs, given how I wouldn't say easy, because you can't really say a playoffs is easy, but how bad the East is this year between all the injuries and just not really having great teams anyway. Like the Rangers played like shit in the second half of the season, and the Penguins don't have two of their three most important players. So yeah, let's get into this. So I'm gonna go counterclockwise from the top, and talk about the Dallas Stars first and the Minnesota Wild. I think this is gonna be a wash. I don't think Minnesota's very good. I think Colorado would have been a much better matchup for the Stars because they play fast. They don't have a lot of great defensemen, kind of like the Stars, and they're anchored by pretty much a goalie play and good forwards, and that's pretty much the same way the Dallas Stars play. Minnesota's almost exactly the opposite, except for I just don't think they're as talented. I don't believe have Zach Parise either, which kind of swings the series. So I'm going to say this is a sweep. As you can see, I picked it to end in 4 games. So yeah, I think it'll be a sweep. St. Louis and Chicago. I know that this is one of the 3 series I'm going to talk about that's already started, along with Tampa Bay, Detroit, and Pittsburgh, New York. And I know the Blues won last night. I just don't think the Blues can get past the Blackhawks. And I mean, if they can, if it's possible, this is definitely the year that it'll happen. But I just don't see it happening. I think that the Blackhawks just have the Blues number. I think that they're pissed off they kind of didn't get home floor or home ice after being in the division lead for part of the year, and Patrick Kane just plays pissed off most of the time, and he kind of drives this team offensively, and he's gonna be a little mad about how his team played last night, not scoring at all and taking it to an overtime when they from what I watched, it looked like they outplayed St. Louis to me. Again, I didn't look at stats or anything. I just saw that St. Louis won. But I looked from the stretches that I watched that Chicago was the better team. They just were getting kind of unlucky. And they even got kind of unlucky on the goal at the end, because you can't call it anything other than dumb luck when the other team scores a goal that goes off your own player's stick and through your goal. That's just a freak accident that wouldn't matter that you gave up that goal in a lot of other situations, but just because it was overtime, it mattered a lot. So yeah, I think Chicago's got this series in 6. Anaheim, Nashville. I wish Nashville had a better matchup. I would have liked to see Nashville. I would have liked to see the wild cards flipped. Nashville would have been a better matchup for Dallas. I'm gonna go on a mini rant real quick. I think it's really stupid that Colorado and Boston aren't in the playoffs because of the stupid system that the NHL uses, where overtime losses are apparently more important than just normal losses, even though they're still losses, and you can get beaten out for a playoff spot by a team that has less wins than you. It's extremely stupid, and I don't understand why no one has pointed this out yet, because there's 2 teams in the playoffs that had more wins than the second wild cards in each conference. So that ends this mini rant. Anaheim's got this pretty much. Anaheim's the hottest team. I still don't think that if Anaheim was against the Sharks, I think it would be a lot more competitive. But I think Anaheim got probably the best matchup for them in this case, and so I'm picking them in 5 to win. I think that Nashville still won at home just from the excitement of having a home playoff game for the second year in a row. So LA and San Jose. Now I did pick this one to go 7, although I'm kind of thinking that it might be a little bit shorter. I'd have to see the Kings play the Sharks. I believe they played each other pretty close in the regular season. However, San Jose still has the whole stink of not making the playoffs last year, and LA didn't either, so I guess that's kind of the same situation. And also blowing that 3-0 series lead to LA 2 years ago. And sorry if you hear my chair in the background; it's very squeaky. But yeah, they just have that sense of uncertainty after that series against the Kings, where anything can happen with that team. They're a mess, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm picking San Jose to lose it in 7 again. Very close series, but we'll move on to Tampa Bay, Detroit. This is one of the only series that directly impacts me because I live in Tampa Bay, and so I have to hear about it constantly. And social media exploded after their win last night, even though there was a bunch of other stuff going on. It was a very busy sports night, so I was very surprised to see so many people talking about the game. But then again, I do live in the area, so that might be more of why they were talking about it than, say, Kobe's last game, which I'll probably rant about in the other podcast that we do. So, yeah, I picked Tampa Bay to beat Detroit. Both of these teams are really, I wouldn't say Detroit's beat up, but they aren't starting Mrazek, who is, I think, the better goalie. And Tampa Bay is missing their top player, but they're still a pretty formidable team without Stamkos and Stralman. I always thought Stralman was, I personally think Stralman's really overrated. He's one of those guys that people see the advanced stats and they think he's underrated. And it turns into a whole he's overrated thing, much like, I'm trying to think of an example that would be like in another sport. If you say something is underrated enough, it becomes overrated. That's the point that I'm trying to make with Stralman. I don't think he's that important to the team. I think they can get by without him and Stamkos. I just don't think they're as talented of a team to get past the second round, especially against the Panthers, who are almost exactly in the opposite case, where they don't have a star player, but they are depth tested. And I think that Tampa Bay's got, if one team can be a sleeper team or a team that goes far and then you wonder why, it would be Tampa, because they do have an excellent goaltender. So I don't see it happening past the first round. I see him passing the first round just because Detroit played really bad in the second half of the season, but that's about the ceiling for this team. Florida and the Islanders, I picked us to go 7, but I can honestly see it going 4 or 5. The Islanders played really bad in the second half of the year. They haven't been consistent all year. They got out to a really hot stretch, hot stretch at the start of the season, and they just have not played up to that level since. Where they were like, there was a stretch where they were like 7-0-2, which is, again, they lost in that stretch, but they got points because of how stupid the playoffs is. I think that they match up pretty okay with the Panthers. I think that was the best scenario for them, other than maybe Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay would be without their top center. And there's going to be a point in the game where the Islanders have more talented players out on the ice than Florida, and that's when they're going to have to capitalize. However, there's going to be a lot of points when the Islanders are the worst team in terms of talent. They have pretty much two lines that can have an impact on the game. That fourth line, if it's still together, that has Matt Martin, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck because of the physicality and all of that. And then the line with Tavares, who I can't remember if Okposo is still on that line or if they moved him. But the line with Tavares, just because they'll have the edge with the better overall player on the ice at that moment. So if they are going to win a playoff series, Florida would be the best matchup. I just think Florida's too good. They played really well this year, and they have a legitimate shot in that bracket to go to the Stanley Cup Finals, because I think they're better than the 3 other teams that are there. So we'll talk Pittsburgh, New York. Now, I picked 7 because I didn't know what the status of Marc-Andre Fleury and Evgeny Malkin was. They're not going to be back till the second round. And I picked 7 because I thought, even though New York has played really bad for every time I've seen them play for the last month and a half, they played kind of poorly. I figured they would push a kind of beat up Pittsburgh Penguins team to 7 before Sidney Crosby just went insane in the last game and had a goal and 4 assists, or 3 goals and 2 assists, or some combination where he ends up with 4 or 5 points in the game and just single-handedly dominates the Rangers. But the Rangers don't have, at least they pulled in last night's game Henrik Lundqvist. And he was going to be the big reason that they kind of contested the Pittsburgh Penguins, because they're absolutely not a more talented team than Pittsburgh. There's no question that Pittsburgh's got 2 of the top 10 players in the league. And the only other team, there's not a lot of other teams that have 2 of the top 10 players in the league. The Rangers are definitely not one of them, and I don't think trading for Eric Staal actually made their team better in all honesty. But without Henrik Lundqvist, this team I don't think stands a chance against Pittsburgh. So if I had to repick, I'd say 5. I think every team's going to win at least a playoff game except for Minnesota, because I just don't think Minnesota's very good. I would have rather seen Colorado in that spot. But I do think that Pittsburgh will, no matter who, if Fleury's not back, Lundqvist, if he plays, is going to steal a couple games from them and going to make it a contest. But I think Pittsburgh's just the better team, and I think they'll find a way to win this series, whether it be from some crazy Sidney Crosby game or other random things that happen. They also have the better backup goalie than New York. Jeff Zatkoff is much better than Antti Ranta, and it's strange that I'm comparing those two. But another series, I think, and the final series, I think, is also going to be a rollover. Washington and Philadelphia. Washington played Philadelphia really poorly during the regular season. I just don't think that Philadelphia can keep up with them for 7 games, though. I think that the speed is a big thing, and getting worn down defensively, which is something I never thought I'd say about a Washington team ever. Getting worn down defensively is going to have its toll on the Flyers, and they're just not going to play up to the level of the Capitals, even though the Capitals have played really poorly the last, I'd say, month of the season. They finished the season with only 3 of their last 10 games having won. So, and that's from a team that wrapped up the President's Trophy like a month ago, which I think part of why they suck so much. When they had a shot at 60 and they only ended up with 57 wins, that's kind of concerning. But I still think they're the most talented team in the league as of this moment, and that's not a bias or anything. That's just from the fact that they won the President's Trophy, and up and down the roster, you can look at the production and say, yeah, that's a very deep team. And so that wraps up the first round predictions. I'll talk briefly about the second round and third round and Cup final. I had Capitals beating the Penguins in 5 or 6, depending on the Malkin situation and everything. And then I had the Panthers beating Tampa Bay. I don't think that'll be a close series either. Ducks in LA, I think that'll be probably just about the closest second round series out of any of them, and I think it'll probably go 7 games. And I think LA will come out in Game 7 and just be dominant again, like they were 2 years ago when they played Anaheim in the conference finals, I believe it was. No, did they play? I'm thinking of Chicago, not LA. I'm sorry, but I just think they'll come out and be better than Anaheim for 3 or 4 games out of the series, and that'll be enough to. And I say be better just in terms of like they'll dominate Anaheim. Anaheim will be stifled. They won't be able to do anything. That might not happen because it's LA and they just never seem to play that way. But I think LA is coming out of the West. So, and then on top of the bracket, Dallas and Chicago. Chicago, I'd say if it wasn't on a back-to-back, I think Chicago would have the best shot because they had the best year out of the best player. But they just played 100 games last year. I don't think they're ready to do it again. And I think that they're going to get past the Stars just based on their coach. They're better coached. They have a better system. The Stars are kind of the upstart team, even though they have quite a few veterans. And I don't think they're in the right bracket to succeed. So I pick Chicago over them. And then I think LA will just absolutely. Oh, people outside. Sorry. I just think that LA will absolutely kill Chicago in a potential conference finals, just because I think Chicago will be worn down by that point. LA will be hungry because they weren't in the playoffs last year. And in the East, I have the Capitals beating the Panthers. Again, this comes down to just who is the more talented team. I don't think Florida's played Washington really close this year. I think they're split their series in the regular season, or it was 3-1 Panthers. I know that they always played the Panthers really close. The Capitals did, so it'll be an interesting series, but I still think that the Capitals are a much different team than the one that just could never win a Game 7. So, however, that being said, I still think the Capitals probably won't win a Stanley Cup final over LA. LA's been there, they know what they're doing. The Caps are gonna, be on the biggest stage ever. Ovechkin's never been to round 3, let alone a Cup final. He's, the George Gervin of the NHL, or Carmelo Anthony would be the more modern-day comparison. He's never been in a final this far into his career. So I just think that LA is due for another cup run. They are super rested up from not playing last year and all the injuries and everything. So anyway, that's obviously subject to change. This is what I think now. That's why I discussed it briefly and didn't go very far into matchups and everything. So whenever this is all done, I will fire up a second round video, probably with this same exact bracket, however broken it is, because I probably got every series wrong in it. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoy, and stay tuned. Tomorrow we got, tomorrow or Saturday, we got an NBA pod coming out talking about the first round of that playoff. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you later.